Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and you guys really loved yesterday's Electro tier list video, and if you haven't already seen it, I'll link it in the video card above. But anyway, this video is about the top 5 characters in Genshin Impact. Of course, these kind of ranking videos are always very subjective, and I do want to hear your thoughts too on who do you think maybe do you agree with, or who are your top 5 as well. So do leave a comment in the comment section below. Primarily, I'm looking at the Abyss meta and how characters can transition over from one patch to another patch, and my ranking is more so on versatility and how easily it fits, or the character fits into many different teams. But that's enough talking, now let's get into some videos and let's begin our ranking list. And in no particular order, we have Kedahara Kazuha. Now Kazuha is an excellent buffer, debuffer, and also a team-wide AoE damage all in one. He wields the very strong Viridescent Veneer set, and he also uses a free-to-play, you could use Freedom Sworn, or you could also use the very free-to-play craftable Iron Sting, which works really well for him as well. He's very flexible in terms of his build, and if you want that extra ER but don't have that C1, you can even run him with a Sack Sword if you happen to have an extra one lying around. I would say in terms of the entire list, he definitely ranks as top 3 for sure, and I would consider him quite close to a must pull for most players. Of course, in Genshin Impact, the content is so easy that no character really is a must pull. But here, that's my thoughts on Kedahara Kazuha. I personally have him at C1. I have him at talents 8, 9, 8, and I use him practically in almost every single Abyss, and this is despite me having most characters in Genshin Impact. So Kazuha is definitely a top rated unit in my account.
This is order. Give me all of your lies, 'cause you're my demon in disguise. I learned to love the
And now we have the Geo Archon himself, Zhongli, who is also on the current banner of 3.0 first phase. And if you play on PC like me, you might not really get his value right away, but if you are a mobile player or perhaps you play on console and stuff like that, you will definitely find that his shielding makes it much easier to go through your rotations. And it's not just shielding he provides, but he actually provides what they call an Omni Shred, where he shreds every single element by a small 20%. Not as much as Viridescent Veneer, but it shreds Dendro and physical resistance, which Viridescent Veneer does not shred. I personally normally run Zhongli with Black Tassel. This is a very efficient build for him. He's a 3-star weapon and it gives a huge chunk of HP. So as you can see, it took his HP from like 38k to 43k, which saves a lot of resources, especially if you want to build other characters and other weapons and give maybe like your Favonius weapon, which you saw here. I can give it to Yunjin, I can give it to Xiangling, and they all might find it much more useful for their kit. And Black Tassel can't really be used by anyone else, so I don't mind just spending the resources to level up a 3-star weapon. In terms of artifacts, I run him with a hybrid set. I didn't really dedicate to farm a specific domain, which I think speaks on how efficient this character is. You plop in a 3-star set on him, you plop in a 3-star weapon on him, and you give him like random 2-piece gear with like random stats that not many people might use, and this isn't even like my best Geo Goblet. For example, you see here I have this amazing Geo Goblet for Ito and Ningguang, but I don't even need to give it to Zhongli because he's just so efficient at what he does as just a HP shielding tank with a resistance shredding. He does his job well and he fits into almost every single team that you can think of. Sure, he might not provide off-field elemental damage, but I think overall this character definitely will be my personal top 3 and probably will benefit most accounts that you have. The only question is, do you have a dedicated damage dealer, especially if you're a newer player?
One with wind and cloud. Wind strike.
Practice all the time.
No turning back. Inazuma shines eternal.
And next we have Ryden Shogun, the Electro Archon herself. And no, there isn't some trend that I put the Geo Archon, Electro Archon, and next is going to be Venti. Sadly, Venti isn't on that list. I prefer Kazuha over Venti overall in terms of how patches flow, but I'll explain that perhaps on another time for another video. So my Ryden Shogun is slightly different from other people. I have her at C6. I was really invested back then when I was first starting out this channel last year when her banner just launched. I do think that her C2 is probably one of the best constellations I've ever seen, and the reason for that is it changes her from a character that just goes from a pure support or a supportive role, and now it turns her into more of a main DPS focused role where she can really do both supporting and she can fit into any team basically. That's what I'm trying to say. Fit into anything as a support, a DPS, a battery, or whatever not. Ryden Shogun at C2 is probably the most complete unit in Genshin Impact. But of course, this list takes into account newer players, and not everyone has the resources to spend on so many constellations. So at C0, I think Ryden is still a very, very fantastic unit. She does good bursts as she takes some fail time, maybe 7 seconds or 8 seconds for her burst rotation, and also does very good elemental buffing. In terms of the E, does buffing their elemental burst damage as well as also giving them some good off-field electro application. Now it maintains the aura on aggravate really well as well. Her meta team is Ryden National, which is a team I'm not too sure whether most of you are familiar with. I hope you are by now. If you haven't, do try it out. There's a team of Bennett, Xiangling, and Ryden, as well as Xingqiu. This team clears most contents across the patches, and for now it hasn't been tested yet, but we're hoping it can change a little bit. But Ryden is a clear double S tier, and I will definitely rank top 3. She will probably be first or second depending on who you prioritize, Kazuha or Ryden. But at C2 or C3 and above, I think that Ryden is undisputed number 1 in Genshin Impact now. If you have been following my channel, I've always been very, very supportive of Kokomi since her first banner. And the reason for that, like if you think about it, if you have only resources to maybe pull 2 or 3 characters on your account, you have maybe a one main DPS like Hu Tao, or perhaps you have an Ayaka as a main DPS, and you want a character that can fit into most teams, and Kokomi on the other hand fits into many teams and many teams very well. You can put her, if you need a healer, into a Hydro team with a Cryo main and you get a Kokomi freeze with Ayaka. You can even play Kazuha Kokomi, and you can even run an offensive Electro or offensive Cryo unit. She works really well with characters like Shenhe. She brings in characters like Rosaria into the meta. You can play Beidou and Fischl as an Electro Charge Taser. She works in so many different comps that she's very different from the other Hydro characters like Chao or Ayato, or even Yelan herself, who are more offensive in terms of their kit and their nature. Kokomi provides that very important healing focus element, which makes team building around her very, very efficient. For me personally, I find myself whenever I'm encountering a difficult situation where I don't really know what to bring, or I don't really know what team comp to do because there are so many different moving parts going around, Kokomi is always a solid choice to fill up one of the slots, and I build a random team around it depending on the content. So I just look at the Abyss, I'm just going to put one Kokomi, I settle my healing, I settle my Hydro application. So in terms of how I build Kokomi, I started off with Kokomi before the Ocean Hoop clan, and I was running, if I recall the tenacity of the Millilith, I ran a hybrid EM and HP Kokomi back then. But back then it wasn't that useful because Electro Charge was the only thing apparent. Ocean Hoop Clan is insane good value for a new player or a player who doesn't want to invest that much resource into one particular character. It does like 20-30k if Kokomi is on her full rotation with her burst of physical damage passively on the side, and she's just so efficient to build. Like you just build her with healing bonus, I build her with Hydro and HP, and some random artifacts that just stack energy recharge. Of course I use her Everlasting Moonglow, but I really don't recommend this weapon. I think this weapon is one of the least versatile weapons in the game, in contrast to Kokomi being one of the most versatile characters in the game, of course. I have her at C0, and I have her talents at 888, and she really doesn't need much more than that, and she works really well. And the best part about her that I like for my account is that whatever non-crit artifacts I had, if let's say I didn't farm for the Ocean Hoop clan, if I get non-crit artifacts or healing focus artifacts, Kokomi was always an option to put them on, which increased my overall account efficiency.
Things are about to get dicey.
By Royal Enhanced Animal Module 75.
Now Yelan A lot of people were at first comparing Yelan together with Xingqiu. People were just wondering, is Yelan just a 5-star Xingqiu? I have her at C0 and I have her at 799 in terms of talents. I really think this character does very well in the current meta as the Xingqiu. For whatever Xingqiu does, Yelan does in a more offensive way. And not only that, they both of them work really well together in a Hu Tao double vid team. I would say that if you are a free-to-play player, now thinking from that perspective, if you were a newer player, you don't like super love her design and you're not obsessed with Yelan, I would say that this character is not as high on the others on the list as a must pull. If you are building a support like Yelan to boost a main damage dealer, most of the time people want to focus on that main damage dealer first before building a support like Xingqiu or something to slowly bump up Hu Tao's damage. In that sense, if you are the only team that really requires Xingqiu like 100% that you must is a Hydro main DPS, and for most of the content so far that I felt, a Hu Tao and Xingqiu team is enough. You don't really need the additional damage that Yelan provides. But nonetheless, I give her respect for the amount of Hydro application she does and the solid damage she does off field. And for that, I would think that Yelan also would rank as a double S tier in the top 5 characters in Genshin right now. Well, those are my thoughts on the top 5 characters in Genshin Impact right now in terms of 5 stars. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or do you disagree with my list? Let me know in the comments below and I'll be happy to read and answer some of them. Otherwise, do consider watching these 2 other videos which YouTube thinks that you might like. See you in the next video.